I'm from the good old USA, but I live in the UK now. And even after being here for a year and a half, I'm still finding out new things about the British all the time. And one of my favorite things to talk about are the things that I find weird. Because there are definitely some weird things about the UK. At least from my perspective. So without further ado, here are 7 British things that I find weird as an American living in the UK. Squash. In America, if you mention squash, people would think that you're talking about the gourd, the one that vaguely resembles a pumpkin and is really only relevant during the autumn season as decorations or as an ingredient in baby food. But squash in the UK couldn't be more different. It's concentrated fruit cordial that you dilute with water to make a refreshing, fruity-tasting beverage. It basically accomplishes the same thing as one of those small little bottled water enhancers that you'll find at the supermarket. I made the mistake of drinking this stuff straight a while back, and trust me, you should dilute it. It's relatively cheap, and it keeps pretty well, and we always keep a few in the cupboard at any given time. Now, is it better than your average powdered drink mix that you'd find back in the States? Yeah, probably. I mean, ingredients-wise, at least. I can only imagine the coloring and chemical flavorings we've got in the stuff back home, like Tang and Kool-Aid. I mean, from what I've seen on the label, at least squash has your daily dose of vitamin C in it. Now, I'm not one to be too fussy with drinking just plain water, but this stuff is nice when you want some flavoring. Now, squash makes the list as weird because it is all over the UK, but everywhere else that I've lived or traveled simply doesn't have it. It feels like a uniquely UK thing from what I've seen. And you know what? I think that's pretty cool. Squash on, Brits. Another weird thing about the UK to an American is pedestrianized roads. One thing I will always be absolutely ready to give the UK credit for is how much better it is for pedestrians here. Seriously, this is one thing that sets the USA and the UK apart massively. In both the cities and even in a lot of the smaller towns, it actually feels like walking from place to place was considered when building the roads. This one goes far beyond infrastructure. It's more about the culture, I think. You see, pretty much everyone who drives in the UK also walks or has walked in order to get around, at least at some point. So there's a better understanding between drivers and pedestrians on how to behave when they meet, who has the right of way, that sort of thing. Because when you get down to it, if it's a large, fast metal box on wheels versus a little old human body, the human body loses every single time. In the UK, there's no concept of jaywalking. It is not a crime here to cross the road wherever you can safely. Pedestrians have the right of way and are also protected by a whole variety of different crosswalk types. The names for them are pretty great too. But in the US, it's often the complete opposite situation. You can be arrested for not crossing the road correctly. That's what we call jaywalking. Save for a handful of major cities, walking is so inconvenient in the US that most people just don't do it, like ever. And when hardly anyone walks, drivers hardly ever think about pedestrians. And this is exactly why it's considered dangerous to walk anywhere near a road in the US. So for pedestrian-friendly streets and walkability, the UK definitely wins. Having lived in London most of the time that I've lived here in the UK, I have to say firsthand, walking has changed my life entirely. Being able to get around with some decent public transportation and not having a car at all, complete game changer. For my health, for my safety, for my wallet. I mean, owning and operating a car is expensive. So while it's a bit sad the pedestrian-friendly streets and walkability has made the list for being weird, that's honestly how it feels to an American. Supermarket meal deals. The meal deal is a beloved part of UK culture. In case you're not aware, it's a main, side, and food combo deal available in most supermarkets that give you a deal on buying all 3 at once instead of individually. But at its core, the meal deal is a symbol. One of true convenience. Now, you would think that in a place like the USA, where people really like eating food, and a lot of it, a shitty prepackaged sandwich, some crisps, and a drink would be a food combo that you would see available all over the place. And yet, it's not. In fact, I made a video last year trying a meal deal from a petrol station in the US because I simply couldn't find one in a supermarket. They just don't exist there. Now, while meal deals are actually pretty cheap in both price and quality, that's actually why they're so beloved here. Let me explain. Probably the most famous meal deal is Tesco's, but you can get them at Sainsbury's or really any supermarket. Boots even, the pharmacy. In fact, I think it's Boots that originally invented the meal deal in the first place. Anyway, it used to be 3 pounds for a main, like a sandwich or a wrap, a side, and a drink. Very convenient and cheap. But even since I've been living here, the price has crept up to £3.85 at Tesco, which I believe is the cheapest meal deal that you can find right now. Correct me if I'm wrong. Now, price creep aside, the true quality that defines a meal deal is the quality. They are average. Like, really average. Notably those pre-made sandwiches and wraps. They are really nothing to call home about. But that's the thing. Despite the average quality of the meal, it gets the job done. And I think that's what the British love the most about it. It is a no-frills, cheap, predictable, and reliable meal to hold you over until you have a proper meal at home or whenever you're gonna eat next. Many Brits have their go-to meal deal combo. Personally, I'm a fan of the brie bacon chili chutney sandwich, some Thai sweet chicken McCoys, and a Diet Coke in the Sainsbury's meal deal, which is a bit on the less healthier side, especially when there's fruit pots and protein-packed alternatives right there. But when I'm getting a meal deal, it's for the comfort, you know? Which might be a weird thing to say about a cheap, pre-packaged meal combo, but I do now find it strangely comforting every time I pick up a meal deal. And that is exactly why it has made the weird things list. Washing up tubs in the sink. Specifically the act of using plastic tubs placed inside the kitchen sink to wash dishes. I remember seeing one in my girlfriend's sink the first time I visited the UK and thinking to myself, what the heck is that thing doing in there? So what I've come to learn is that British people will do this because that tub serves as a mini sink to put inside of your sink, as an alternative to directly hand washing your dishes in the basin of your sink. I've seen some people say that it helps keep your main sink free from food. Unlike in America, there's no garbage disposal in the sink here, so you really don't want food getting down there and getting stuck. Another argument I've seen for this method of washing dishes is that it saves water, which maybe it did decades ago when water was possibly scarce, or if you're out in the wilderness or on a camping trip where access to water is inconvenient or limited. I mean, we use these things all the time in the Boy Scouts to wash our pots and pans because the nearest water spigot was usually a very decent walk away. But these days, most kitchens are fitted with one of these, a dishwasher, which saves enormously on water compared to the tub in the sink method. The only situation I can really think of where this would still be useful today is for maybe hand washing delicate ware like glasses, or if you want a scratch-free sink or something. Other than that, just thought it was kind of weird to see. And before anyone comments that these things are technically called bowls, I'm sorry, that is not a bowl. This is a bowl. Christmas crackers. Every British person I've spoke to has had their minds blown by the fact that Christmas crackers really aren't a thing outside of the UK. The first time I heard about them is when I was told to expect them at a Christmas time dinner gathering that my girlfriend was taking me to. And I genuinely thought the entire time she was talking about some type of cracker that you eat, and that I would be trying some festive version of that. Nope. It is actually a paper tube that you pull apart. It pops with some form of mild gunpowder, and little gifts fall out, like small toys, terrible jokes on little strips of paper, and a colorful paper hat that you're supposed to put on after you're done. Unfortunately, my head is the circumference of Jupiter, and I can never fit them on because they always tear. Now, interestingly, there's actually a method to opening Christmas crackers. It is a group event where everyone around the table gets handed one. They cross arms like this, holding one in each hand with the next person, and at the count of 3, everybody pulls them apart at the same time. There's one big giant pop, and it's just so much fun. It's a great time. I actually love them. Now, I know that might sound like a silly little tradition to anybody outside of the UK, but you have to understand Christmas crackers are very key to a British Christmas. No British Christmas is complete without Christmas crackers. It's just a very cute, fun little tradition that adds to the celebration. My girlfriend and I ordered some when we went back to the US to celebrate Christmas over there last year. And it was great times all around. Everybody had a lot of fun with them. Unfortunately, we couldn't bring the popping kind that you see most commonly over here because the airlines wouldn't allow it because it contained an explosive substance. I'm serious. They had a dedicated bin at luggage check-in at Heathrow for you to chuck your Christmas crackers in case you put them in your pack. It was hilariously full. My only criticism of Christmas crackers is that they're a bit of material waste. Most of the time, everything just goes right into the rubbish bin afterwards. But I mean, they're mostly made out of paper, and paper can be recycled, so that makes it not so bad, right? Weird little things to an American, but for how much we love explosions, maybe they shouldn't be. washing machines in the kitchen. This is probably the thing that my American friends have asked me about the most since my girlfriend and I moved out of our tiny little flat and into our first house together. Why do British people insist on putting their washing machines in the kitchen? That's where food gets made. And I'll admit it, in the beginning, I thought it was a little weird too. The kitchen just seems like a weird place to wash your clothes. Originally, I thought it had to do with all the soap and cleaning products, maybe being in close proximity to each other in the kitchen or something like that. But it's actually because British homes simply are not like American homes. They're smaller and more compact, so space comes at a premium. The plumbing system for the house is often nearby where the kitchen is, so why wouldn't you also put the washing machine there? It just makes sense. I think this is a hard one for Americans to grasp because in the USA, it's a completely different story. Personally, everywhere I've lived has a dedicated room just for laundry. Like, the room is almost entirely taken up by the washer and the dryer. American houses are built with this dedicated room in mind. So the washing machine being in the kitchen, it's just one of those things that sounds bizarre until you actually live here. And then, like most other things, it just becomes normal. Where we are right now, the washing machine is actually in a small closet directly next to the kitchen because that is also where water gets piped into the house. One thing I still haven't gotten used to though is that washer-dryer combo machine. I'm sorry, I cannot do these. Every single one that I've used has been a fantastic washing machine, and at best, a very optimistic dryer. You press the drying cycle, you wait a couple of hours, and then somehow you pull out your clothes and they're still damp. Like, every time. They're warm, which makes you think it almost worked. Then you put the t-shirt on and realize it absolutely has not. So like most people I know here, I just end up pulling out the clothesline and hanging everything there to dry anyway. But at that point I start wondering, if we're all just air drying our clothes anyway, why are we pretending that this thing is still a dryer? Just admit you're only a washing machine. There's no shame in that. Is the washing machine in the kitchen weird? To me, yeah. But perhaps I should say I'm just getting used to it. And maybe I'm the weird one for still thinking that it's weird. And last on the weird British things list, but certainly not the least, caterpillar cakes. This here is a Colin, which you can get from the M&S supermarket. While I am totally freestyling as part of the video, I didn't script it out, I just have to say, what the actual fuck? Why does every single supermarket have some variation of a caterpillar cake? I've had a Colin before and it's not terrible for a supermarket pre-made cake. I would get it for a child's birthday, or hell, for my birthday. And to be honest, a caterpillar is actually an ingenious shape for a cake because you can just slice it like that and you get a pretty decently sized slice. But why a caterpillar? Well, how did that start? I would say most supermarkets do a pretty good job of at least making them look cute here. But at the end of the day, it's weird because you're still eating a chocolate bug that has nothing to do with being British or British heritage, and yet it is just core to British culture anyway. So weird as it may be to an American, you know what? Hell yeah. Long live the caterpillar tradition. So there you have it. 7 British things that I still find weird as an American who lives in the UK. Things that are maybe a bit less weird now that I've been living here for a while. If you originate from outside the UK as well and find any of these things to be normal or strange, do let me know in the comments. I make videos every week or so about life in the UK through the eyes of an American, and there's always something new for me to discover here. So if you enjoyed the video, I'd really appreciate it if you gave it a like, and if you hype the video as well. You can find the hype button down near the comments. If you haven't already, please do subscribe to my channel. It is the absolute best way to help me grow my channel, and you can always change your mind later. Thank you so much for watching, and remember, being British is fun. I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.